Hi, I'm Pam Fox. Thanks for tuning in. Good morning, everyone. So I just made a smoothie in my Vitamix, and it's really ugly because I put spinach in it, but this is 3 bananas and, I don't know, maybe about a dozen strawberries, and then a handful of spinach and a palmful of ground flaxseed. So I'm going to sip on this. While we talk. It's really good. And the reason it's really good is because my bananas are nice and ripe. I brought these over. Those little spots indicate ripe, which means the fruit is sweet. All right, so it is May, and I know it's May 5th, but I'm starting a new challenge this month. The challenge is going to be a 30-day whole plant foods home cooking challenge. So your challenge this month is to try and incorporate in more home cooking, but to incorporate in more plant foods. So what that means to you is going to be different to what it means to somebody else. Maybe you want to go all in, and maybe you want to do a full whole plant foods 30-day challenge, home cooking challenge. Or maybe you just want to incorporate in and try more whole plant food recipes, just to see what they're like, to see if they taste good, to see if you think they're satisfying, to see how you feel when you eat them. You know, maybe you won't feel that I'm so tired, I'm so bloated, my stomach hurts feeling after you eat a typical meal that's filled with, animal foods. I love making these smoothies with just the berries and the bananas, or just the bananas. They're so beautiful. You add in the spinach and it's just kind of uglifies them. But that's because spinach is green and it just kind of changes the color to a brown. But so this month, your challenge is going to be to focus more on home cooking. So why home cooking and why whole plant foods? Well, the further away we get from home cooking means that we're eating what? Means that we're eating fast food, means that we're eating, out at restaurants, means that we're just grabbing convenience foods, which are, usually junk foods, things that are packaged, things that are quick. Maybe we're cooking, but we're cooking things that are already prepared from the store, like a frozen meal, a boxed meal that we just add water and milk to, like macaroni and cheese, something like that. So the further away we get from home cooking, the closer we get to cooking foods that are really less and less foods. And so that's where we start to see, many of us, we start to see our health deteriorate as we're getting away from the plants and we're moving closer to the junk. And so that's the home cooking part of it. And then the whole plant foods part of it is, what is it that you're cooking? So if you're on a standard American diet where you're including a lot of meat, dairy, and eggs in your meals, then that means you're eating less of, your fruits, your vegetables, your grains, your nuts, and your beans. When you're eating foods, let's say a meal of, you've got your meat and maybe a vegetable and a starch, maybe a grain. That meat is going to be the most filling part of your meal because it is higher in fat, which means it's going to be higher in calories. So it's going to make you fuller. It's going to slow down your digestion. It's going to take a long time to go through. The meat's going to take a long time to go through your digestive tract. And it's going to make you tired. And the saturated fat in those meats are going to play a role in reducing your arterial function, so the blood flow. They're going to reduce your lymph function, so the lymph flow in your lymphatic system. And so what happens kind of on a clinical level is when you eat foods that are high in saturated fat, which are your animal foods and your eggs and your dairy and your meat, that fat, and oils do this too. So plant oils like, olive oil, canola oil, vegetable oil, they do this too. they inhibit the function of what are known as endothelial cells, and those endothelial cells line the vessel walls. They line the vessel walls, and they protect the vessel, and they promote good flow. And so when those endothelial cells are compromised, then the function of those vessels that, you know, things need to flow through smoothly, that is compromised. And so we want to have healthy endothelial cells. And so one of the bad things about eating a diet high in animal foods is that that function is decreased. And so then you start to see things like heart disease, for example. Our country's #1 killer, heart disease. More than 500,000 people die of a heart attack every year. So it's a big deal. And so we want to keep the vessels in our body healthy and youthful and functioning, and we want to keep those fluids flowing. So simply by either reducing or eliminating those animal foods, you will see a rebound in arterial function. You will see a healing in those endothelial cells begin to happen immediately. They begin to bounce back and heal after, you know, I don't know what it is, 8 to 10 hours after a high-fat meal. But then, you know, you turn around and you eat another high-fat meal. So maybe you have, you know, meat, dairy, and eggs for breakfast. Then you turn around and you have it again for lunch. And you turn around and you have it again for dinner. So your body just has a really difficult time trying to bounce back from feeding it all of that oil and fat. So yeah, again, so you can do with this what you want. You can take a 30-day challenge and really go wholeheartedly. Now, so I'm going to give you a little bit of a warning. Next month, the Circle of Life category is health. It's simply health, which, you know, can mean a lot of things. But for me, we're going to be actually doing a 30-day vegan challenge. So it's going to be an actual 30-day plant-based challenge where you eat no meat, dairy, and eggs for a month. So this month is kind of just a precursor to that. So you can do a full vegan challenge this month, or you can look at it as kind of a way to prepare yourself for next month by maybe trying some plant-based meals, by trying to maybe encouraging yourself to cook at home more often. Maybe you're going to set up a schedule for yourself. Maybe you're going to set up a shopping list for yourself so you're prepared. And preparedness is really key when it comes to home cooking. You might have all the good intentions in the world of coming home and cooking a meal, but if your pantry isn't stocked and your refrigerator isn't stocked, then, you know, what are you going to do? How are you going to cook if you don't have the ingredients? So a few staples to keep on hand. One, again, is the bananas. The banana is such a great food. It's got so much in it that's good for us. It's also convenient. You know, these lay around the house for several days and they ripen, and they can get really, really ripe, and they're still great in a smoothie. A lot of the smoothies that I make are just banana goes in there first. So a simple banana smoothie with just banana and water, as long as the bananas are ripe, is actually one of my favorite smoothies. So I just might put 5 or 6 bananas in a blender and then add enough water to make it blendable. I also like to keep, you know, when these get really ripe and I feel like I'm not going to get to them in time, I break them into chunks and put them in a Ziploc bag and keep them in the freezer. And I reuse those Ziploc bags. I just keep them in the freezer when they're empty. And then when I have bananas like this, I reach in and grab the Ziploc bag and put new bananas in it. Those can go, if you have a Vitamix, those can go in. If not, you're going to want to get your bananas out of the freezer early. Here's a little tip. And put them in your blender and let them sit for really only about 10 minutes to defrost a little bit. You don't want them to turn to mush in your blender, but you want them to defrost a little bit so that your blender can handle the frozen bananas. So get to know your blender and what its capabilities are, and then experiment with your frozen bananas. But you can put those frozen bananas in your blender and then add whatever you have on hand. This morning I happened to have fresh strawberries, and some leftover spinach, so that went in. I like to keep ground flaxseed on hand, put a palmful of that in here occasionally, just because the health benefits of ground flax are out of this world. It's something everybody should have in their kitchen, and you should be sprinkling it on your food occasionally, or sneaking it in a smoothie occasionally, sneaking it in a casserole, sprinkle it on your tacos, just incorporate it in however and whenever you can. It is so good for you. I will link something below about ground flaxseed from my good old friend, Dr. Michael Greger, at nutritionfacts.org. But bananas are a great staple to have on hand. Frozen berries in your freezer are great to have on hand. I love to get my frozen berries at Costco just because you get a big bag. Usually they have an organic option. Usually they're not that expensive for what you get. You know, maybe $10, $11, $12 for a big bag of frozen chopped up fruit. It's right there in your freezer. It goes into the blender, and frozen fruit makes a really nice, creamy, cool smoothie, especially nice in the summertime. And then if you want to add in any of your mixed greens, your kale, your spinach to a smoothie, that's just going to give it more vitamins and more calcium, which is great. Another staple to keep on hand are your favorite grains. So I know everybody's different when it comes to grains. Some people are grain-free, some people are gluten-free, some people are gluten-sensitive. So, you know, do what you can. If you're gluten-free, there are a lot of wonderful gluten-free grains. So try and experiment with those. You know, go to your bulk food section at your grocery store and maybe get a couple of cups of each and bring them home and experiment with them. Figure out what you and your family like. If you can't do any grains, then you're going to be focusing more on things like nuts and beans as a staple in your diet for something filling. And then if you are, let's see, grain-free, gluten-free, gluten sensitive. Yeah. So for me, I'm not any of those. So I eat a lot of different grains. One of my favorites is farro. I love wild rice. I actually love brown rice. We go through a lot of plain old white rice, you know, to make like sushi rice. Basmati is good. There are a lot of different types of rices. What else do I like? I already said farro. I've never tried amaranth, but that's a gluten-free grain. You can try that. Quinoa is a gluten-free grain. That's really popular. Not one of my favorites, but there's a ton of grains out there. You guys go on your computer and Google, you know, grains, and a list of like probably 20 different things will come up. So there's a lot of choices when it comes to grains. And then beans, you know, you can choose. You can either keep dry beans in your house. If you've got like an Instant Pot or a crock pot, you can make up your beans really quickly. And it's not hard if you just have a regular pot. You just need to soak them the first night and then cook them the next night, just to be a little bit more organized. We just keep canned beans on hand. We try to stock up on, you know, our favorite canned beans. So we've got those on hand. And again, beans come in so many different, you know, you've got your black beans and your white beans and your kidney beans and your pinto beans and on and on. There's a lot of different kinds of beans. So figure out which ones you like, stock up on those and keep them on hand. Hummus is a really fun thing to make. It's great just to dollop on a dish to add flavor, or eat as a snack with your vegetables or your tortilla chips or pita chips. Hummus is really easy. If you have a food processor, you just put in the beans and then add some lemon juice, some tahini, some garlic. Those are the basic ingredients. But you can add in other things if there's certain herbs and spices, or if you want to make it, you know, a certain type of hummus, like if it's for, maybe you're going to put it on your Mexican food, you could add in some chili and some cumin. If you want to put it on, you know, a Greek food, maybe you want to add in, just do like lemon and garlic and some Kalamata olives in there. If you want to do, you can do all kinds of things. You can take, it's just, you get your beans as your base, and then a little bit of tahini in there to make it creamy and give it a little extra flavor. And then you can go all different avenues with your hummus, and it's a lot of fun to make, and it's addicting. It's delicious, and it's you know, as long as you don't put a ton of oil in there, I don't put any oil in there, then, you know, it's fairly low fat. The tahini has fat in it, but I consider tahini, at least the kind that I buy, an almost whole food. It's obviously not a whole food because it's been processed, but it's, you know, it's sesame seeds put in a blender, so nothing's been extracted from it. So some people would consider it a whole food, but it's a processed food. So bananas, rice, beans, potatoes. Keep some potatoes on hand. Always keep potatoes on hand, and don't be afraid of potatoes, guys. A lot of people think and say that potatoes make you fat. They don't. So if you think they do, take some time and do some reading on potatoes and on what, you know, people are doing all potato diets and they're losing a ton of weight. There's a lot of nutrients and fiber and wonderful things in potatoes. If you're doing an all potato diet and adding in, you know, maybe some salads and some fruits and a vitamin B12 supplement. You have everything you need. You're not going to be deficient in anything. You're going to get all the protein you need, all the calcium you need. Potatoes do not make you fat. It's what you put on the potatoes. It's the butter and the sour cream and the bacon and the cheese. It's the things we add to the potato that make them fattening. It's not the potato. So they are a wonderful staple. You can make, you know, obviously sky's the limit. You can just, you know, poach them and have them as a side dish, put some salt and pepper on them. You can chop them up and bake French fries. That's something that we do a lot, and I love them. You can make mashed potatoes and add in your favorite herbs and spices. One tip for mashed potatoes is, again, if you have a Vitamix, I can't speak for other blenders because this is all I have, but hemp hearts. You can buy hemp hearts at Costco in a big bag. Keep them in your refrigerator or your freezer. They're white and they look like they have a little bit of fungus growing on them. They're like white with a little blue-green spot on them. Don't throw them out if you open them up and you see that. That's what they're supposed to look like. But if you put a big palmful of those in your blender with a little bit of water and whip that up, it makes a creamy white, very creamy white sauce or dressing that almost looks like ranch. And that's a great way to make ranch. You can add in your ranch dressings to that, your spices to that, like your garlic powder and your onion powder and your dill and your parsley or whatever, and that makes a great ranch. But you can take that same white sauce and blend it into your mashed potatoes, and it makes them very creamy. I know when I used to make mashed potatoes, I would put in butter and sour cream and really whip them up and make them creamy and flavorful. You can do the same thing with the hemp hearts. So anything that you want to eat, just about anything that you want to eat, can be made into a plant-based version. And I'll be talking more about all of those things throughout the course of this month. I need to wrap this up because this video is getting really long. But so if you want to join us on this 30-day Whole Plant Foods Home Cooking Challenge, start by, first of all, start by telling yourself it's going to be fun. It's not going to be hard. It's not going to be like a sacrifice because you're going to go without meat, dairy, and eggs. It's going to be, you know, creative and challenging, but aren't good things worth it? Isn't like improving your health and getting more energy and feeling younger and losing weight, aren't those things worth it? You know, having to spend a little time being creative and, you know, facing a challenge. Eating plant-based to me has actually been so enjoyable. And in my next video, I'm going to talk about all of the benefits that I experienced going on a plant-based diet. And throughout the course of the month, I'm just going to be sharing my little tips, just things I do, things I've done. I still have a lot to learn, and I've been vegan now for almost 3 years. So for those of you who are taking the challenge, please join in. If you try a meal, take a picture and snap it and post it in the Up Your Game Facebook page. Share if you've been on the diet for a couple of days and you're starting to experience anything, whether it's good or bad, please share, let us know what that is. And if you are already vegan or you're already on a plant-based diet, will you please join along with us? Take pictures of your food because you can be an inspiration to the rest of us. Show your beautiful food and tell us your story about how you overcame illness or how you overcame fatigue or how you lost weight on a plant-based diet and how it has positively affected your life. All right. Okay, so that's it for today. I hope you have an awesome day. Thanks for watching.